Okay, welcome back. So here we have the Sentinel, the path of the Sentinel. Now this one has 4 activations. I don't stray too far from the path it gives here, but there are points where I do change things up, so we'll go into it. First activation. No whammy in these phrases, obviously, because there's no sustains for most of the song. But yeah, it says to activate on a measure. I opted to just activate immediately. Now, I probably should have looked at it a bit longer because I didn't realise that this activation right here is on a measure, and I just assumed it was randomly, like somewhere random in these strums, and I was like, I can't be bothered remembering that. But as it turns out, it is on a measure, so that was probably a mistake on my part. But the good thing is, the activating here, it probably won't change the game at all. I think the only thing you get here is maybe an extra squeeze right here where the activation ends. So activating here didn't really matter at the end of the day. None of the matches went down to the wire by like 200 points, although they could have. But yeah. So the first activation, just immediate, made it easy to remember. Not that this is particularly hard to remember, but you know what I mean. So yeah, maybe a mistake activation there, but fair enough, that's just the way it is, and that's the way it was, should I say. Next activation. Regular phrase here, then we get some whammy. There's only, I think, like 2 whammy phrases in the whole thing, and these 2 right here. This one's the main whammy phrase though, because we can see the BPM is quite fast, so we do want to whammy this because we'll get quite a decent amount of star power. And it's sort of during strumming, or the sustains are just after alt strumming, so as I say, whammying after alt strumming isn't the easiest thing to do in the world. But it's not too bad here because it's simple and linear, unlike the rest of the song. It's just, 8 strums, 4 strums, followed by a sustain. So that's fine. The next whammy is so short it barely even matters, but it's right at the end of this, where it goes into this rhythm here, for like a couple of measures. Sometimes I went for this whammy, sometimes I didn't. As I say, it's so short, it doesn't really matter that much, but it can... this song does have the potential to give, like, really close scores. I was saying earlier that it never did end up going that way, but it definitely had the potential to. So getting this extra whammy and maybe an extra 400 points in the next activation could be worth it. And this whammy isn't that hard, all things being said. It almost seems a bit pointless because of how short it is, but it is the last note of the phrase, so probably worth getting it. And I did go for it, I think most of the time. I think maybe the first match or the first couple of matches I didn't bother. But yeah. Then we actually get the activation after getting these phrases. Now this one, it says to activate here, I activated right here on the measure, and it's not very easy to tell where this measure is, because as you can see it's just all the same chord in this weird rhythm at that. Now, I count 4 cycles of this rhythm before the activation. So the rhythm goes da 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 da. So right here, this is the start of another cycle. It throws you off. It should probably be in 5/4, but it's in 4/4. And this is the start of the second cycle. So I was just counting the rhythm 4 times. So it goes. So basically, every time we get these 2 yellow blues in a row, the second one of those yellow blues is the start of a new cycle. So here's the 3rd cycle, and here's the 4th cycle. And this is the start of the 5th cycle. So if you look through all that, you'll be able to see it matches up right here, and this ends up being the start. And that's an easier place to remember where to activate, doing right here. Now it's obviously not a perfect activation, because right here you end right as the chords end, but I don't think you really end up much worse off. You might lose 400 points, and that could be the deal breaker, but at the sake of not activating too early and screwing up and not getting the overlap, because the overlap is relatively tight, or activating too late and getting these notes, which aren't worth anywhere near as much, I think this was a decent choice to activate right here. And it's on a measure, so you can, even if you do lose count, you can sort of play it by feel, because this is the only, well, I guess it's the 3rd time a double yellow blue lands on a measure. So we got right here, and right here. So that's where we're going for, and that's where I did activate pretty much every time. Activating just when you feel like it might be right and not having a set point in these chords is not really a good idea, because as I was saying, you could easily activate too early or too late and screw it up. But yeah, and we'd end up, the activation would end up out here instead of about here. So you probably have the potential to squeeze in this note anyway. But it would probably end here, realistically, not giving us the chance to get a squeeze. So that's that activation. A little bit annoying, a little bit of a mystery as to where you should really activate. Because I think people in the tournament were saying it's like, oh, it's the 40-second blue, yellow blue or something. Like, no one's going to count that. There's no point. So yeah, just go for the measure, and it's alright. Next activation. There's no more whammy. It's literally just that one activation that has whammy, by the way. So we get 3 phrases again. This one, once again, is pretty much right after the phrase, but not quite. It's right here on this note, and this note is extremely awkward to activate on. So I went for this, and you can tell where this is because, well, first of all, it's right after the phrase, and second of all, it's the second set of 3. And you can obviously identify that before the notes come up. So activating right here, and no chance of overlapping there. And yeah, once again, we'd miss out on maybe a note at the end here, so it's not that much of a deficit. And as far as this activation goes, I actually did go for this middle note activation once because I was behind and it was against Nick, and I ended up missing after, otherwise I would have won, which is the annoying thing. But yeah, as obviously didn't end up mattering in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, this activation is really weird if you do it on there because it ends up being on an upstrum. So yeah, I just went for the easy route most of the time and went for the first green of that set of 3. Now the final activation, once again I didn't do it exactly where it's supposed to be, because it's kind of like from this point right here, measure 86, it's literally just all blue notes, and this second rhythm comes in at measure 90, and then that's it for the entire song. You've got 26 straight measures of it just being this. So yeah, a bit hard to remember this exact note unless you count cycles or whatever, and I couldn't be bothered doing that. So I just went for activating on the phrase, which is an easy place to identify, and once again, you might be missing out on one note, because activating here, phrase might end up ending here or something, or maybe a bit later, maybe it ends here. So yeah, just activating here, once again, maybe missing out on 200. And that can be undoing on this song. The optimal is 439. I don't know what I was getting before 36 on my practice runs anyway. And you see I'm sacrificing 200, 400 every now and then, which on a song that had the potential to be really close, it can screw you over. But even having said that, just knowing that you can alter your set activations by one note, like I knew this activation was right here. That's nice zoom out. So I knew the actual activation was this note, but I just went for here. And I saw I was behind, so I was like, right, so we'll just go for this activation. So having a backup activation if you're behind can help. As it happened, that was the only one I actually knew where the real activation was. But yeah. So this song was more path heavy than notes heavy, but we will obviously look at the notes as well, and I'll see you there. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the notes for the Sentinel. Now this song, there isn't really any fretting at all besides these little slider parts, which I don't think anyone had any trouble with. So it's just going to be talking about strum rhythms and learning them in this case. So we'll get on to it. Intro. This one's not so bad. So, and that's one cycle that doesn't change from that until a little bit later, but that's a different section. So what we have, if you remember, duh, 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 and then you're just doing that in bursts of 2 strums, so you literally don't even have to play them fully fledged, you can literally just burst strum them like this. And then it ends at a seemingly random point, but that just happens, but yeah. So at every single point where there's a short break, your strum bar will be up. It ends on an up strum. And I don't do any reset strumming at all, I literally just alt strum all the way through. Because of that, it makes it easier. So that's the intro. Not bad. I don't think people were struggling with that part at all. This part's a bit weird. First one here. I'm at 100% speed. Excuse me. Right, the first part, still not any harder. Okay, now we're back on track. So verse 1 here. Once again, it's all of it ends on up strums, and it's all, you can do it in verse 2, but it's just a different rhythm, so it's a, I don't remember exactly what it is, or something. Okay, so once again you can just do your burst strum of 2 trick, and it becomes free. You're just counting every 2 notes, and it doesn't get any longer than like 3 strings of 4. And then it changes in verse 1b to this 5-3 bit, which I think is a little bit harder anyway. You really need to pay attention to where it changes to 3s. Especially in the open note bits. Doesn't help that basically in the middle of that, one of the 5s ends up starting on an up. So yeah, the last 2 ones that are strings of 5s, they start on ups, so you can sort of remember that to see if you're on the right track, and or you need to change. Anyway, and the open note part's the same, it's just opens instead of reds. So that's the first verse, first part of the song, I guess you could say. Then we don't get strumming like that for a little bit. This part's all easy. I don't really need to say anything about it. Pre-bridge is just, it's fine. So bridge A. Right, this is a rhythm you should learn, right? Now it's in 5/4. The measures tell you it's in 4/4, but really the rhythm itself, even if the song's in 4/4, the rhythm itself is in 5/4. So yeah. Dun 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 dun. Well, the last one would be the start of a new cycle, but yeah, just doing that over and over again, burying it into your mind. Every cycle starts on a down strum, so you don't even worry about that if you alt strum all the way through it, which is what I do. Activation, as I was saying. You don't even need to accent it, really. I don't think I would accent it. The good thing is it's all in the same note as well, so it's literally just a case of you can close your eyes and just do the rhythm, and that's literally it. If you remember it's in cycles, and it's in 5/4s there, you'll be able to identify it when it repeats, and it won't seem like just a random rhythm. And that's how that bit goes anyway. And so that ends, and it ends normally, and we switch to this rhythm, which I think is maybe a little bit harder. But yeah, once again, it's a dun 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 dun. It's a bit faster tempo. But once again, it's just there's nothing to learn other than just doing it over and over again until you know the rhythm and you can't do it wrong. Once again, the cycles start on down strums, so you can alt strum all the way through it. And you can burst strum these little 2s. I don't think I would though, it just makes it... makes your hand a bit too animated if you're bursting them. So if you really wanted to, you could do the note and the note before it and the 2s, or the note after it if it lands that way. You could just do them as 3s, so... I mean, I haven't done it this way, so it's going to be a bit weird. Dun, 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 dun. So used to the rhythm now, that's what happens. I don't know if he really wanted to, but that's obviously not what I did, so yeah. So if you get those two rhythms sorted, and this is all under star power, so it's kind of important that you do, you won't just be strumming through it randomly and like, because you could try and like finagle your way through it, right? I guess that works because it's clone here, you can literally just drum at the same tempo. Unbelievable. There you go. Easy. Even more consistent. 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that's the thing. You can go over them a little bit, so it's definitely... I wouldn't recommend that unless you literally can't keep the rhythm at all. But anyway, I wonder if you can do that with the first part now. This is Clone Hero in 2021. Anyway, Bridge C is just the tapping bit, and that's fine. And honestly, verse 2 is pretty easy as well. Even like the vocals are doing the rhythm as well, so it's just a lot easier to know what it is. I'm pretty sure, once again, there's 4 sets of 3 strums, so it's going to be on a down each time the cycle repeats. So that, honestly, I don't think anyone's struggling with that rhythm. The hardest part of the song for me, intro revisit, is literally just the intro again. So outro for me is the hardest bit to know exactly what to do, especially considering there's an activation in it and I didn't do a tilt act. So I'll just play it now in a sec. So it's not quite like the intro where you can do bursts from the 2, because you have these sets of 7 in, and once again we go back to Wonder. That rhythm. So you can't do your burst strums of 2 unless you want to end on a 1 down strum, and then you have to, after you hit that down, you immediately back into the burst, so it doesn't really work. So I think unless you want to reset strum every single time, or at least reset strums after the 7, I opted just to alt strum through the whole thing, even through these large gaps. It just, because the cycle does reset on a down strum like everything else, so you have that going for you, and you're just a lot less likely to overstrum by accident with Explorer bounce back or whatever. So yeah. Just me miscounting, doing 5 for some reason. So yeah, doing that, and then there is the activation, I think, wherever the star power phrase is, which does mean you have to do this while, at least for me, I have to do it with my pinky extended to the button, which is a bit harder, but you know, there isn't really much else can be said. This is just how I did this, but you just look and see. I didn't even learn the rhythm, to be honest with you. I just looked and saw where there was a 7 and where there was a 4, and that's all you need to do. But yeah, I wonder if there's a way to cheese it like you could with the other ones. There's no way. I don't think there's any way you could do it. You'd have to strum too fast, yeah. No. Good. That's a good thing. Alright. Anyway, enough of me messing about. We'll do a run of this song now. Okay, so that was a Sentinel 110, 436k. So I was saying optimal was 439. So missing 3,000 points there. Just fair enough. I think this was about what I was getting. I couldn't remember before, but now it rings a bell. This 436 number. So anyway, now we'll move on to the next song, which is The Thing.